we'll be looking at volcanic eruptions caught on camera and discussing the history of a few that caused some of the biggest tragedies in history. From volcanoes that destroyed millions of dollars worth of crops, to those relating to more recent disasters. But first, let's start the list with a volcano whose eruption has lasted 17 years and counting. Number 10. Volcan Popocatépetl. On one of its latest eruptions last January 6, 2021, the Washington Volcanic Ash Advisory reported a volcanic plume that rose to 21,000 feet above the Popocatépetl. In response, Mexico's National Center for Prevention of Disasters warned citizens not to approach the volcano for fear of falling rock and ash. And despite being 45 kilometers away from the site, some of the ashfalls even reached the city of Puebla. However, what may be surprising is that this report wasn't the start of its eruption. This event was merely part of the volcano's ongoing activity in January 2005. Volcan Popocatépetl is an active stratovolcano and the second highest volcano in North America, rising to approximately 17,700 feet in height with a 25,000 kilometer base diameter. Oh, and something further incredible to note, according to studies done, Popocatépetl is 730,000 years old. It's located 70 kilometers southeast of Mexico City, where more than 20 million people live close enough to be affected by major eruptions. Try not to worry too much though, as there have only been more than 15 counts of major explosions since 1519, with most of the eruptions of the past centuries being relatively mild. Number 9. Kuchino-Ibarabujima, Mount Shindake. What makes Kuchino-Ibarabujima interesting is that the island itself is an active volcano, housing approximately 147 residents. One of the fatal explosions recorded happened in December 1933, wherein several people died when their villages were buried in lava after an eruption. Thankfully, other known eruptions were less lethal. In 2015, an eruption caused an ash cloud that was estimated to rise to about 30,000 feet into the air. Japanese Coast Guards were then mobilized to evacuate the island's 140 residents, thankfully resolving the event with no deaths and only one suffering minor facial burns. These residents only returned a year later in 2016 after lifted evacuation orders. And as recently as early 2020, the volcano erupted again with ash and smoke that rose to about 23,000 feet in height. It even caused rocks to be thrown as far as 1,970 feet from the crater. Despite this, there were no immediate reports of injury. Still, the Meteorological Agency of Japan maintained the alert level to be 3 of 5 and advised climbers not to hike the mountain. Number 8. Volcán de Fuego. Despite being known for its consistent low-level volcanic activity, Volcán de Fuego's eruption in 2018 was catastrophic, affecting over 1.7 million people with a death toll of 165 and an additional 260 folks missing. This eruption was the most severe Guatemala faced in 45 years. The volcanic eruption broke bridges and covered crops due to mud and ash flow. Entire villages found at the bottom of the base were destroyed, engulfed in lava. Its rapid pyroclastic flow could even overtake people and cars. It's hard to imagine this event not being a repeat of Pompeii, which some other reports have alluded to. However, what's scarier is that it's still dangerous, as the volcano remains active and unpredictable. History suggests this even. The 1717 San Miguel earthquakes of Guatemala are believed to have been caused by Volcán de Fuego's volcanic explosions, as it is located merely 16 kilometers away from Antigua. A lot of the architecture at the time was destroyed, and over 3,000 buildings collapsed. It was so bad that the colonial authorities even considered moving their headquarters to a different location. Kinda worrying, huh? Number 7. Taal Volcano. The Taal volcano is regarded as one of the most dangerous in the world, with a history of significant, devastating eruptions while being anxiously close to densely populated areas. Let's take a look into its past. In January 1911, Volcano Island suffered an immense loss. Huge, fan-shaped clouds of black smoke with the volcanic lightning showered hot mud and sand with a dizzying sauna of steam and gas down the volcano's slopes. This eruption cost the lives of 1,100 citizens, with 119 injured, though it's assumed that more had died than official numbers show, as 7 villages on the island had been wiped out completely. Then again, in 1965, an explosion caused by the volcano generated pyroclastic surges, which, by the way, are eerily similar to the ground-hugging blasts associated with nuclear blasts, that traveled several kilometers from the initial site. This devastation caused at least another 100 deaths. And lastly, in the year 2020, the Tal volcano once again erupted. For 2 months after its explosion, the landscape continued to look like the moon. $11 million worth of crops were destroyed, dozens of people died, and numerous livestock and fish perished. It makes you wish it never erupts again. Number 6. Mount Etna. Could you believe that a volcanic eruption could result in some good? Because in 396 BCE, due to its timely eruption, Carthaginians were unable to advance on the Syracuse Greek city-state during the Second Sicilian War. Unfortunately, it isn't all good news, as in 1669, Mount Etna erupted, creating lava flows that burnt 14 villages to the ground. 5 weeks later, the lava found its way to Catania once more. The city walls were strong enough to withhold and divert the lava into the sea. However, a considerable amount of the hot substance broke through, breaking a few buildings, though stopping just behind a Benedictine monastery, leaving the town center unscathed. Despite its path of destruction, no casualties have been officially linked to this incident. The widespread news of a death toll of over 20,000 is believed to possibly be tied instead to the 1693 Sicilian earthquake. And now, just recently, there's been another eruption. Last February, Mount Etna spewed a rose-colored plume of ash into the sky, which had dissipated by night, largely being replaced by the glowing lava flows. Authorities claim this eruption was not worrying, though for safety reasons, they still closed down Catania's international airport. Number 5. Mount St. Helens. On the morning of May 18, 1980, the world witnessed the most catastrophic and deadly eruption ever witnessed in North America, that of Mount St. Helens. At about 8:30 a.m., a 5.1 magnitude earthquake hit, causing the entire northern face of the volcano to avalanche, becoming the largest landslide in documented history. It was, however, quickly overtaken by a lateral air blast of partly molten rock, highly pressurized gas, and steam. The plume was so tall, at 80,000 feet, with blast speeds of 500 kilometers per hour, that ash was distributed to 11 different states and some Canadian regions. As that happened, snow, ice, and even glaciers on the volcano melted, forming massive volcanic mudslides that reached 80 kilometers southwest of the site. Complete darkness was reported about 400 kilometers northeast of the volcano. As a result, thousands of animals died, 57 people were killed, trees found within 500 square kilometers were blown away, and the river valleys that sat as far as 27 kilometers were buried under mud and debris. What's most worrying now is that geologists believe that future eruptions from this volcano would be much more destructive, as more pressure would be required for it to erupt due to the configuration of the lava domes. Number 4. Eyjafjallajökull volcano. Found in Iceland and sometimes referred to as the E15, Eyjafjallajökull is a volcano covered by an ice cap covering about 80 square kilometers, with the volcano itself measuring 5,417 feet in height. It has erupted frequently since the last ice age, with the latest having happened in 2010. Though the 2010 eruption was relatively small for volcanic activity, many European countries were affected for several days. On March 21st, lava began exiting through a 500-meter vent. A few weeks later, on April 14th, lava from new fissures surfaced, the heat of which quickly melted the glacier above. The mud and ice ran down the volcano, swelling rivers and streams, causing floods on farmlands and damaging roads. Gases from the fast vaporization of ice began a series of explosions, sending a plume 11 kilometers into the air. Prevailing winds drove this ash cloud across the North Atlantic Ocean and northern Europe. Because of this, officials of several countries were worried about the potential threats to life and aircraft should commercial flights try to pass through the plume. The Piton de la Fournaise, considered one of the most active volcanoes globally, is situated in the southeastern section of Reunion Island in the western Indian Ocean. It's so active that there have been more than 150 eruptions that occurred since the 17th century. Thankfully, these explosions caused little devastation due to the lack of inhabitants and few infrastructures. But if that's the case, what's so exciting and unique about this volcano? Well, here are a few fun facts about it. Unlike previously thought, the Piton de la Fournaise isn't 360,000 years old. Nope, it's much older at 530,000. It rises to 2,632 meters above sea level, and it alone takes up a third of the Reunion Island's landmass. That's pretty hard to miss. 250,000 years ago, a large volume eruption occurred. This resulted in a 240-meter-high tsunami as the eruption caused a 15-kilometer section of the volcano to slump into the east, with plenty of material dumping into the ocean. Finally, despite its reputation, the Piton de la Fournaise is the most visited attraction on Reunion Island, with 400,000 visitors who have come to admire the lunar-like landscape. Well, how about you? Would you like to visit? Number 2. Krakatoa. This was known as the legendary volcano that caused one of the most catastrophic eruptions in history, Krakatoa. Before its historical eruption, the volcano continuously exploded a few days prior, sending hot debris to ships within 20 kilometers of its area. On August 27th, the volcano erupted 4 times during its climax, causing tsunamis estimated to be 98 feet high. Third was the most famous eruption, its explosion heard in 50 different locations across the globe. To give a scale of how powerful this volcanic activity was, it's believed that the energy released from that one explosion is 4 times that of the Tsar Bomba, the most powerful thermonuclear weapon ever detonated. The aftermath was horrible. At least 36,417 deaths were attributed to the eruptions, primarily due to tsunamis, while some died in the rain of hot ash. It's even been reported that groups of skeletons still washed ashore on rafts of volcanic debris to places as far as the east of Africa a year after the event. The world experienced a volcanic winter, and the sky was dark worldwide for years, with artworks worldwide depicting the vivid Number 1. White Island. Imagine being on tour with your family or friends at a popular destination. All of you having fun and being mesmerized by the scenery, only for the day to end with you sobbing out in the open, being the sole survivor of a disaster. This is the reality some tourists of White Island suffered through on December 9th, 2019. 47 people, 38 from the cruise Ovation of the Seas, were on the island when tragedy struck. Some tried to run, whereas others opted to hide, searching for a refuge in the extreme heat and hail of rocks. An emergency inflatable 200 meters offshore retrieved 23 people, whereas others left behind to grisly fate. Passengers described the victims as akin to candle wax, their skin melting from their bones. Seawater, too, lapped at their wounds during the rescue trip back. According to these survivors, the aftermath was the most painful thing they experienced. Even hugs given to them by passengers to try and help warm them up felt like fire in their veins. From the tragedy, 22 people died, 2 of whom were rescuers who did their best to save as many lives as possible. There are ongoing hearings regarding this tragedy, the last hearing held on June 2021.